Greek mythology is among the most well-known mythologies in the entire world. Thousands of years after the myths were first told, modern people watch movies based on them, write books retelling the classic tales, and pore over the stories left over from the ancient Greeks. Among the legendary Greek pantheon, one god stands out for his speed, cleverness, and ability to travel between the land of the living and the land of the dead: Hermes. From his origin story to his role in the Greek pantheon, Hermes is a fascinating god. Keep watching to learn more about Hermes and the many aspects of his personality. Hermes' role in Greek mythology. Hermes is one of the most dynamic of the 12 Olympian gods in Greek mythology. Many gods were in charge of just a few things, like Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom, and Poseidon, the god of the sea, storms, earthquakes, and horses. However, Hermes is associated with a long list of things. In fact, by some accounts, he has the most domains out of all of the Greek gods. Hermes is the god of herds, flocks, travelers, hospitality, roads, boundaries, wealth, luck, fertility, thievery, cunning, diplomacy, language, writing, sleep, athletic contests, merchants, and messengers. In addition to all these aspects of his divinity, he was the herald and messenger of the Olympic gods. He made such a good messenger not just because of his speed and famous winged sandals, but because he could cross the boundaries between the living and the dead. This made him good at yet another one of his responsibilities: shepherding souls to the underworld. This was incredibly important in Greek mythology because most gods, including Zeus, could not cross into the underworld. Hermes was one of the few capable of passing over that boundary to carry messages and escort the newly dead to Hades. Known for being a trickster and for his cleverness, Hermes features in many myths. Notably, he was one of the gods who aided the hero Perseus in his quest to defeat Medusa, the Gorgon who turned men to stone with her gaze. He lent Perseus his winged sandals so he could fly to Medusa's lair, his sword to slay her, and even Hades' helm of darkness so Perseus could sneak into the Gorgon's lair. In art and literature, Hermes is depicted as either a handsome and athletic youth or an older bearded man. He is almost always shown in his famous winged sandals with a herald's wand. Sometimes he wears a winged hat, a traveler's hat, or a lamb carried over his shoulders. Hermes' origin story. While each of the gods has a unique origin story, Hermes' origin story may be one of the most entertaining. The son of Zeus and a nymph named Maia, Hermes was born in a cave on Mount Selene in Arcadia. As an infant, Hermes escaped from his cradle and crawled into the pastures of his half-brother, the god Apollo. There, he found 50 of Apollo's sacred cattle, which he decided to steal as his first act of mischief. Hermes led the cattle away, driving them through rugged terrain to make their trail difficult to follow. To obscure his own involvement, he reversed his own footprints as he walked, making it appear as though he had traveled in the opposite direction. The cattle were carefully hidden in a remote cave, far from Apollo's sight. After securing the herd, Hermes sacrificed 2 of the cattle to the gods as an offering. Then, in a stroke of ingenuity, he crafted the first lyre. Using a tortoise shell and strings made from the entrails of the sacrificed cattle, Hermes created a beautiful instrument with a sound unlike anything the world had heard. When Apollo discovered his cattle were missing, he eventually traced the theft back to Hermes. The young trickster initially denied the act, but Apollo brought him before Zeus for judgment. Amused by Hermes' resourcefulness, Zeus ordered him to return the cattle. To make amends, Hermes offered the lyre to Apollo as a gift. Apollo, captivated by the instrument's beauty, accepted, and a lasting bond was formed between the 2 gods. Hermes and Argos, a myth. One of the most famous myths, other than his origin story, features Hermes as a main character in the rescue of Io. Io was Zeus's lover. Although Zeus was married to the goddess Hera, he was known for his many affairs, which almost always ended in trouble for the other woman. In this case, Zeus was with his lover Io when his jealous wife suddenly appeared. Thinking quickly, Zeus transformed Io into a white cow to trick Hera. Unfortunately for Io, the goddess was not deceived. She demanded the cow as a gift, and Zeus conceded to her request. Hera took Io away and appointed a 100-eyed man named Argos Panoptes, known as Argos or sometimes Argus, whose name translated to Argive All Eyes. Sources vary on the number of eyes he had, but many authors, including the legendary poet Ovid, agreed on 100 eyes. Argos was the perfect guard, as he had multiple eyes on Io at all times. When he slept, he only needed to close a few of his eyes at a time. It was impossible to sneak past him. In addition to his many eyes, he was enormous and incredibly strong. He wore a bull's hide taken from a bull he had defeated barehanded. Some authors even include Argos in a list of giants. Knowing he might be the only god up to the task, Zeus found Hermes and sent him to sneak past Argos to rescue Io. Hermes had a quick solution for the many-eyed guard. He lulled him to sleep with his music, then slew him with a sword. He rescued Io, returning her to her home and her misguided affair with Zeus. From this conquest, he earned the title Argifontis, or Slayer of Argos. As a reward for her guard service, Hera placed Argos's 100 eyes on the tail of her sacred bird, the peacock. Hermes and the ancient Greeks. Hermes was revered in ancient Greek culture. Some of the earliest temples were devoted to him. As a protector of travelers, merchants, herdsmen, and thieves, many of the citizens of Greece looked to him to keep them safe. One of the most unique ways he was worshipped compared to the other gods was through items called herms. Herms were rectangular stone pillars with a sculpted head of Hermes at the top and a large phallic symbol at the base. They were placed at crossroads, doorways, and boundaries and were thought to mark transitions and provide protection. Herms were a symbol of Hermes' role as a god of boundaries, and the people of ancient Greece looked to them to ensure safe passage and ward off evil spirits. They also marked boundaries and had legal significance, especially in Athens, which had many herms. They were used as a reference for the locale of meetings and could even be used in court cases to specify a location. In homes and marketplaces, smaller statues of Hermes may have been placed as offerings to invoke his blessings for prosperity and success in trade. Although some gods, like Zeus or Athena, are known for grand temples, Hermes typically had smaller, more practical sanctuaries. One of the most notable temples dedicated to Hermes was the Temple of Hermes at Phineus in Arcadia, near his mythical birthplace. Pilgrims, especially herdsmen seeking his favor for their livestock, often traveled there to honor him. Other rural sanctuaries dedicated to Hermes frequently included altars or simple shrines near herding grounds, reflecting his connection to the pastoral lifestyle. He was also likely worshipped in many smaller, more everyday ways. Travelers would pray to Hermes for safe journeys and offer sacrifices to him at crossroads or roadside shrines. They believed he could protect them from harm, guide them safely through unfamiliar lands, and ensure favorable outcomes for their travels. Before market days or significant trading ventures, offerings would have been made to Hermes to ensure profitable transactions and fair dealings. Because he was associated with language and communication, the tongues of sacrificed animals were often dedicated to him. Herdsmen would also have sought his blessing for their flocks and livestock through prayer and sacrifice, trusting Hermes to keep their animals safe from predators and disease. They might dedicate the healthiest of their livestock to Hermes as a tithe to gain his favor. Hermes was also particularly loved by athletes, who frequently dedicated trophies, sacrifices, and prayers to him in gratitude for their successes. Because his worship was so woven into daily life, it made him one of the most accessible and widely honored gods in the Greek pantheon. In various parts of Greece, Hermes even had festivals in his honor. One of these festivals is called Hermia or Hermaia. Associated with athletic competitions and games, this festival reflected the young and athletic aspects of Hermes' identity, owing homage to him as the god of sports. It most likely included sacrifices and offerings at herms or shrines. According to some resources, only young boys were allowed to compete in the athletic competitions at these festivals. Slaves were allowed to compete as well, but adult men were banned. He was honored almost everywhere in Greece, especially in the Peloponnese at Mount Selene and city-states like Megalopolis, Corinth, and Argos. Athens, which held an annual Hermaia festival, had one of the oldest cults devoted to the god. Hermes in the modern world. While most of today's people do not believe in the Greek gods, their renown is lived on through the ages. Hermes remains a significant cultural figure. He continues to inspire and even appears as a character in movies, books, comics, art, and much more. He is featured in or mentioned in video games like Hades and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. In classical literature, he appears in works like Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, where he plays pivotal roles as a messenger and guide. He's also been depicted or mentioned in modern literature and media, such as Neil Gaiman's book American Gods and the movie Clash of the Titans. While we no longer make sacrifices or pray to the god, we certainly have not forgotten him. Even though he isn't mentioned by name, his archetype of messenger and trickster lives on in art and architecture. Whether we recognize it or not, Hermes has impacted our modern culture in more ways than most of us realize, despite being worshipped thousands of years ago. He is one of the most dynamic Greek gods, and certainly one of the most underrated. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about Greek mythology, including gods like Hermes, check out our book, Greek Mythology, a captivating guide to the ancient gods, goddesses, heroes, and monsters. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.